Big announcement. Unreasonable Doubt has been under the Smoking Musket umbrella. That changes soon. The guys behind smokingmusket.com are leaving SB Nation and starting something new and starting something independent. Oldgoldandblue.com. OldGoldandBlue.com. Same people, new adventure. Launching August 3rd. Go to oldgoldandblue.com. The Smoking Musket Discord becomes the Old Gold and Blue Discord. West by Pod, a podcast about WVU football with Joel and Jordan, still happening. Unreasonable Doubt, still happening. Under the Old Gold and Blue umbrella starting August 3rd. Check it out. From the studio in Nitro, West Virginia, this is Unreasonable Doubt. It's a podcast about West Virginia University basketball. I'm Josh Witt. How's your summer going? You having a good summer? You catching some rays? You went to the pool? Next month, school comes back. Also, I think football comes back. And then after that is basketball. But I hope everybody's enjoying their summer. Ross Hodge spoke to the media today, a summer check-in, and he had some news. Yes, some of it was bad. Amir Jenkins, this is not bad. He's had surgeries on both of his shoulders. Don't have the exact timetable for his return, but he is recovering. So hopefully that means sooner than later he will join this roster. Because of the other news, Javan Buchanan, waiver denied. I know. Are you sitting down? WVU basketball player got their waiver denied. There's a lot of swirling stuff, right? Could he go the legal route? Sure. Is Brennan Lorian out there in the ether with a possible legal route to play in the 2026-2027 season? Possibly. Both guys could be on the roster, because Ross Hodge does have a roster spot open. Neither guy could show up. Would that be great? No. They are way better with Buchanan, and even more better if Laureate is in the mix. But I think we're on the clock as far as whatever path. Legal, I don't know if there's another path. Legislation, feels like something's happening there. A lot of dominoes to fall, but school starts for WVU on August 18th. And the last day to register for classes is Monday, August 24th. So in my head, that's the absolute deadline. So of whatever's going to happen, legal route, confirmed, denied, hey, you're out, filling up roster spots. From the press conference today, it sounds like Ross Hodge is going to have 15 players. So whatever that looks like, that's all going to happen in the next few weeks. But not great, not surprising news for Buchanan, but more dominoes to fall. But we're deep into the summer, less of me, more of somebody else talking. And first-time guest, Mike Asti, joins Unreasonable Doubt to talk about WVU basketball. He's the managing editor for WV Sports Now. He also does a podcast, the Mountaineer Report, that you can find wherever you listen to the podcast. Here's my interview with Mike Asti. Appropriate to note that my interview with Mike happened prior to the news today about Javan Buchanan's waiver. Spoiler alert, here's the interview. All right, Mike Asti, welcome to Unreasonable Doubt, a podcast about West Virginia University basketball.
Thanks for having me, man. And it is a fantastic title for sure. I think it's very, very fitting to not only WVU sports, but the basketball program, especially off of what's been going on in recent years. And I just like the phrase in general. So happy to be on the show. I've had some colleagues we talked about off the air that I know have been on with you. So happy to jump on for sure.
It can mean something different to anybody. So thanks for that feedback.
Yeah,
You
unreasonable
covered
expectations, unreasonable pressure, unreasonable
so many
reality,
ways to go with it, for sure.
unreasonable, whatever you want there. Unreasonable doubt for sure. I'm all about it. I love
Yeah.
it.
So you cover WVU sports among other
Sure.
things. What is your favorite part of covering WVU sports, if you have one?
Well, it's cool in the sense of I'm an alum. So I am an alum of WVU. And when I was in college and doing college radio and covering the programs in the athletic department while in school, I didn't know at the time that I was going to end up covering WVU sports professionally. It's taken a decade for that to happen. I've done a lot of different things in media, but it's just cool because I'm an alum. I do care about the school. I have a connection to the school. I have a sense of history to the school. I know a lot of the people that are running the athletic department that are involved behind the scenes. Obviously, a new athletic director, and Baker wasn't there. I'm old enough that he certainly wasn't there. Was I was in school, but a lot of other people are still involved behind the scenes that I still know from when I was in school. So just that connection. And I am a journalist. I try to still have this be as unbiased as I can be and try to call it like I see it. I do that with anything I cover. So if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. I just try to be down the middle and call it like I see it. I do live that life, but there's an emotional connection that I'm not going to deny here. I am an alum. I do prefer the teams to do well. I don't want it to be dire for the school that I went to athletically, and I would prefer things to go well, but if not, then not. So despite trying to walk the line of being a journalist and being down the middle and trying to be even keel and trying to not incorporate a bias, I'm an alum. So that part of it is just cool to incorporate covering the school that I went to, that I met many of my best friends when I was there. It was a heyday for the athletic department. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot of things. I had a lot of cool experiences, and I'll never change any of my college experience and how to be able to kind of to go back and visit. I do live in the Pittsburgh area, but to go back and visit a lot. If I'm not covering WVU, I'm probably not going to Morgantown as often as I do throughout a year. So that's kind of cool. And to just have memories flash back to me now that I'm in my late 30s of what went on when I was in my, late teens, early 20s, mid 20s, when I was there, because I lingered a little bit after graduating. So it's just cool being an alum and covering the program that you're an alum of. It's, sometimes it's difficult, as I said, because you want to be down the middle, but it's still cool.
Yeah, awesome. And your voice is a common voice I hear in press conferences for the head coaches and other things.
Yeah, I
You're
imagine.
active.
I'm
Do
not,
you
I'm not shy at the
You're
pressers, I
not
will say.
shy. Do you remember your first ever press conference question? And
Wow.
second question, what goes into a good press conference question?
So are you asking my first ever press conference question in
Ever.
terms of covering WVU
Just
or just
period. Yeah, just in general.
so I guess in general it probably would be WVU because
Okay.
as I said, I did student media when I was a student. I do not in any way remember my first question though.
Okay.
I do not. We're now talking, a decade plus ago. I can try to make it up. I do not
You don't
recall.
have to. It's all good.
But in terms of what I think makes a good question or my mentality going into the press conference now, which would be different than when I was a college student. I'm not going to deny when I was a college student, I was definitely intimidated at first. I
Sure.
mean, certainly intimidated walking into a Bob Huggins press conference as a college student. That is incredibly intimidating. I'm not going to deny that was my experience as well as anybody going through it right now. I may try to coach you to anybody I work with that's underneath me now and say, don't be intimidated by certain things that you're dealing with. But of course, I probably was as a college student as well, certainly dealing with Huggins and even Rich Rod. Like I'm sure I was intimidated back then. I don't recall my first questions, and I'm also sure, and that Rich Rod doesn't recall me from as when I was a college student, and I'm sure Bob Huggins didn't as well. But nowadays, now that I've been around the block, I've been doing the media thing for a while. I honestly, people can believe this or they don't have to believe this. I'm not intimidated by anybody any coach, whether this would be Bob Huggins, Ross Hodge now, Neil Brown, Rich Rodriguez, Mike Tomlin. It doesn't matter. I've been in many of his when he was the coach of the Steelers, obviously. Mike McCarthy now. you name it, whether it's national, in the region, WVU, there's no coach that's going to intimidate me now because this is kind of a joke. But I've even said this, including people that are working for the program. There's nothing that can happen bad during the presser off a question that I would ask or anybody that would ask that would be worse for me than a really negative reaction from the coach. Nobody's watching the presser to hear what Mike Asti has to say. You're watching it to hear what Rich Rod has to say or Ross Hodge and what they have to say. And if I ask a question that really, aggravates Rich Rod, who's calmer now in his 60s than he was back then, but he's admitted he still sometimes get agitated. I've pretty much been told that a couple of his comments that he made to McAfee of, oh, there were a few instances where I had to pull back to not go back to who I was 20 years ago. I know one of them was a question that I asked, and it was after the Ohio game when we were standing in basically in their practice facility because they didn't have anywhere for us. And I asked him about, his thoughts on the quarterback position, and it didn't go. Obviously, that wasn't a game that he wanted to discuss it. He gave me a real long stare, and you could tell he was trying to restrain himself, and then was like, Mike, wait till Monday to ask me again. And then I had somebody go like, I probably wouldn't ask them, but I did because again, I'm not intimidated now. Like the worst that could happen is if Rich Rod hauls off and punches me, he's messing up his career, not mine. So I just am not intimidated now. I ask what I feel like needs asked, and I do go in sometimes with a mentality of what do the fans want to know? What do both sides of the fan want to know, whether they're optimistic or pessimistic? What needs discussed here? So I think a good question is tackling what you think needs discussed, asking something that's relevant to what's going on, not sitting there because people sometimes do this, even if they go occasionally, or maybe they don't pay attention, you know. I will pull back the curtain. Many of us in media sometimes do roll our eyes when you have somebody who goes to one presser a year and they sit there and ask a question that was asked a week earlier or asked a day earlier or Rich Rod's talked about a lot. And it's like, maybe try to scan the YouTube clip before you walk in here if you've not been at other pressers, because that's going to annoy him. It's going to annoy us. We don't get that much time. This is not a 4 hour long press conference here. This is about 20 minutes, 30 minutes at the most. He'll get the hook. It's not even on his time. Somebody else is hooking him. This is the situation. So I would love if, I know this has been brought up, I would love if fans would get a question. I wouldn't be against any of that. I've told this to many, the content creators or the fans or whoever. If they want to allow a fan question on Zoom, so be it. I'm not going to argue against it, but we still got a window here. So we all get our one or two questions. You got to hit it. So and I'm a talker, as you can see now, but having a concise question that is about what's going on, that is what fans want to know, and not being afraid. I think that maybe is simply put too, and maybe I'm at this space now in my career that I wouldn't have been years ago. Not being afraid to ask something that you think maybe could get an overreaction, that you think maybe could be controversial or annoy the head coach, or maybe could not be something that's positive. If it's legit and it's relevant, go ahead. Don't be afraid. What I don't want to promote, and what is not a good idea, is to walk in with an agenda. I don't do that. I walk in, if it's off a loss, we're going to have some negative questions we got to ask. If it's off a win, it's mostly going to, you imagine, be positive. I can't control what happened on the field, so or the court. But there are people that do this, and I don't think this is a good idea to walk in thinking, how can I stir the pot? I want to, I want a reaction. I want to go viral with Rich Rod, or I want to tee him off. Like, I don't do that. People think I maybe do. I don't do that, and that's not a good idea. But I honestly can confidently say, and I don't know, maybe you're a better person to evaluate me off of this because you've now, as you said, you've heard me ask a lot of press conferences over the years. I honestly think I'm the same guy asking questions to Neil Brown as I am to Rich Rod. And obviously their personalities are very, very different. And Neil Brown's a lot friendlier and Rich Rod is more prickly, even now in his 60s with kids. And, maybe he's not too far away from being a grandfather in the next 5 years. He's a different guy now than he was back then, and he's different than Neil Brown. But I still go in with the same mentality with either one of them. So ask what needs asked. Don't be afraid, and get it in within the time frame.
Sure. That makes sense. And it's always interesting. And you're just dealing with personalities and time
Yeah.
and place. So it's definitely interesting.
And they're
Let's,
very, very different. I mean, football wise, you couldn't have two different personalities than Neil Brown and Rich Rodriguez, separate
oh,
from
night
them
and
as a
day.
coach.
Yeah. Two
But
parts of the
personality
spectrum.
wise, what you're dealing with in the presser is completely different scenarios for sure.
Sure, for sure. Let's talk about WVU basketball. We're in July, Mike, but guys like John Rothstein, Jeff Goodman, they're
Yeah.
predicting top half finishes for WVU in the Big 12 standings. We're in July. Could be they've one roster spot open. What's your impression right now of Ross Hodge and his roster for the upcoming season?
And those predictions are interesting to me because while there are some saying they could be the sleeper of the Big 12 that Rothstein has mentioned, Goodman is high on them. I think fairly placing them anywhere from 6 to 8. I think that's fair off of last year in the Big 12. But there are others that, despite the tournament expansion going to 76 teams, there are others, Andy Katz's of the world, Lenardi, that are still saying they're going to miss the NCAA tournament. That seems a bit wild to me because I will say, and again, I believe I'm fair. I call it like I see it. I think Ross Hodge has done a really solid job this offseason. Certainly improving to what it was a year earlier, and as it should. He was there the whole year. They invested more money. He knows what he maybe didn't get done recruiting last year. Ross Hodge is a very honest person. I mean, from talking to him on the record and off the record, I got to know him a little bit and hung out with him a little bit, even off the record at the Pittsburgh stop of the coaches caravan. And he's willing to say what he messed up on last year, or now that we can look back on and say, oh, this needed to be better, or this needed to be different, or now I can do this differently. So he's in year 2. And he has all of that in his brain. He was able to fully recruit. He was able to, during the year, know, hey, I got to get this done for next year because this clearly has been our problem this season. And I don't think last year's team really even worked out the way they won the crown. They were close. It wasn't a horrible year for year 1 with 18 wins in the regular season. I think it certainly was okay for a guy with his first job at the Power 4 level. But I'm sure in the back of his mind, we all could see that, okay, Eagle staff was brought in to maybe the top scorer, certainly one of the top 2 scorers. There was a roller coaster ride early on. If that doesn't happen, it just ruins positioning for the whole team. And maybe you have an undersized player who's leading the way in Honor Huff, and he was a great player. It's great to root for him. He had a lot of heart, but there were mental lapses. And is that type of guy who's undersized best to be carrying a team in the Big 12 when so many of the teams are so big? Is that the way to build a team? And there were negatives to that. There were flaws to that roster, even though they got so far and that they were close. So pivot to this year, I think he's built a better group in terms of a group that fits the Big 12 even more. I like that there's more size. There's a rebounding touch. There's Bizjack and others that can shoot the rock for sure. He's still bringing you the shooting touch. This is not a perfect team, but he was able to bring in Muhammad Silla, for example, one out of the Power 4 level. Fans screaming. You didn't bring in a Power 4 player. If you needed that Javon Small player that DeVries had, that you get that guy that has the experience, even if he wasn't a top Power 4 player, he can carry you. And that player wasn't on last year's team. I know a lot of fans always would tell me, West Virginia, every cycle, got to get one Power 4 guy at least. And I think it's a bit overblown sometimes. If you're a quality player, it doesn't matter where you came from. But going off of what didn't work with Eagle Staff and Company, and now bringing in some Power 4 players, bringing in some bigger players, bringing in players that can shoot, bringing in players that can rebound. And then I always honestly do trust that Ross Hodges' teams are going to be stout defensively. I think we have enough to look at that, whether it be WVU or North Texas. So far, I like the team. Do I think they're a Big 12 contender to lift the trophy? No. I do think, and I don't know if you're aware of this or you remember this, I was one of the more critical media members of the hire. And I've had the program tell me they thought I was the most critical. I actually was so critical that there were some within the program thought I went too far. I honestly, at the time, thought that Ross Hodge was more of a safe hire for Ren Baker, bringing in his friend. I didn't think he had enough experience at the power at the either not only power, as he obviously he wasn't at a power school, but even just in general at the D1 level, only being a head coach for 2 years. I thought a job like West Virginia that has all the history behind it, even if the last few years were rough, with a lot of pressure to win now and fix what's been going on, needed more of a veteran guy with more experience. I was down on the hire initially, but getting to know Ross Hodge and seeing what happened, I do think he's a fit for the program. I do think he wants to be there for the long haul. I think his mentality is similar to Huggins in a way. He doesn't have the personality. He's not going to yell, but he has that defensive minded, this is the way to do it. I know my system, and my system's going to work for me, and it's worked in my career, and he gets guys to fit that. So I do believe in Ross Hodge's vision now, and I think year one was positive, and now the recruiting has been positive. And of course, I didn't even mention, but Miles Sadler, a 5-star recruit coming aboard, doesn't matter who the coach is. That's a gigantic deal for WVU. And he is a player that, from what I've heard from everyone who evaluates high school players, he can step in and be good right away. There are some that think he's not going to be, as good as maybe WVU fans think he'll be right away and lead him to a Final Four immediately. But he is that player that is as advertised from what I've heard and everything we've seen from him. Every piece of film and all the accolades certainly speak to that. You have that guy that has not been there for a while that can carry you through some dry spells and can take over games. I do think this team, based on Hodge and based on what I said and based on the roster, I think it's fair to say that in year two, with all of that said, and even the financial investment that's been made, which is around a level you got to put in to get in the NCAA tournament. I mean, getting into that 15 mil range is what you got to get into, and that's where they are now. They weren't there in recent years. It's very fair to say they got to be an NCAA tournament team. I think right now, based on what we've seen, if we're talking this time next year, they got to be coming off an NCAA tournament appearance. Doesn't mean they got to make a Sweet 16 or go deep. They could get in and get blown out. They could, have an up and down season. I maybe that'll happen, but they got to get in. When there's more teams that are going to offer spots, even if they're mostly a first 12 type scenario, even if that's your life and you get into that, that would be a gigantic step from what this program's been dealing with in recent years, as you know, with all the drama and the rough seasons. And I'm right there with you. I mean, as I said, I try to be down the middle. They got screwed under DeVries. They should have got in. They didn't get in. If that would have been an NCAA tournament appearance, maybe the fans would digest this a little better because it's only been a 2-year drought instead of a 4-year drought. But doesn't matter. None of that matters. I've even asked Hodge this directly. Like, you're not at fault for the way Huggins' tenure ended. You're not at fault DeVries' team got screwed. You're not at fault Eilert, I believe, was in over his head and they didn't have any other options and they only won 9 games. But you're now the caretaker of all this. So you got to fix this, or the fans are going to certainly come after you like the time is now. So they got to get in. They got to find a way to get in after the way they've recruited and the money they've invested. Now in year 2 and not 1, they need to get in. I do think anything shy of getting in would be a disappointment. I don't think the fans would love getting into the college basketball crown the second time after they see it happened once. You win it, that's a big deal. That's great, but not again. So there's pressure on this year that wasn't there. And I guess the other additional point here I'll add, this schedule's tougher. That's my only pause. I think the roster is better. I think it's built to be at least a top 7 team in the Big 12. I do think the Big 12 is going to get 8 teams, et cetera, if not more again. I think they certainly can, win some games. They're going to lose some too, but I think they could be an NCAA tournament team and they should be. They're investing to that level. But there's an argument they're beefing up the non-con a little bit too much because you need to win a lot of those games there, even if they're swing games and maybe you should. We'll see. It's really going to be indicative of what they do in the fall and before the turn of the year and what that record is to set them up for the Big 12 play because you're going to lose some of those games. But I think they got to get in. They will probably get in. I like what they've done in the offseason, but there's some cause for pause on the schedule. For sure.
Sure. No, I mean, the blessing and the curse of being top 8 is you go to this players era tournament where that is a step up in Houston's in that group. They start with Auburn at midnight Eastern Standard Time, or is it 1 a.m.? So it's getting out of there 1 and 2, or that can set a tone. And what we saw last year with the team is in these tests of playing major teams, they messed up all of them. And
you can make an argument. The roster was flawed. I hear it. I know it. I agree. Ross Hodge agrees the roster was flawed in year one. It was going to be, it was best he could do late into recruiting. With all that said, they should have beat Clemson. They should have beat Ohio State, who Pitt freaking beat as bad as Pitt was this past year, and West Virginia trounced, of course. Just add those 2 wins, and they probably are at least closer, if not in the tournament.
For sure. And
It's
very
possible.
That's the story of last season. There's 5
Right.
or 6 games that really swing.
So those are the games you got to win this year. Those are
right.
those type of games are the games you got to win this year. I think they're better positioned to do it. And those are the games that you hope that if you're in that situation again late in those swing games, that a player like Miles Sadler, even if he is in year one of his college career, can carry you through.
Sure.
That's the issue. There's a maturation process that even Honor Huff went through that he didn't seem ready for those moments until maybe we're getting into March when it was kind of too late. We saw it in the Crown. We didn't see it in November. Now it appears they have a team that could do it in November. They have some players that have been through those games before. That should be.
We'll see, and that's going to be a challenge when you're rehauling a roster every year. That you're going to be better in February than you are in November. Mm-hmm. It's always going to hold true, even more so with the amount of transactions and completely 100%. New roster. All right, speed round, Mike. Yes or no? Will Brennan Lorient play for WVU this season?
I'm going to lean no.
Will Javan Buchanan play for WVU this season?
I'm probably gonna lean no as well.
Oh no! Tell me about. Okay, I got to expand on that. What's the concern? He's got to get a waiver.
Yeah, well,
and that's why I ask. But why are you lean no?
I'm just a pessimistic person with the waivers. I guess is more where
history.
I'm going. I mean,
WVU,
we've
Murphy's
seen like battle.
Sure.
We've seen players win those. It's not the end of the. Yeah, I mean, maybe more likely than Lorient. But I think Ross Hodge has the mentality that the team he recruited is the team he has to work with and the team that he's having to get in the NCAA tournament. I don't think in his brain, at least I haven't talked with him in a month, but a month ago I talked with him. That was his thought process. And we're going to hear from him soon here as he's gearing up and then getting into camp. But
not getting him really. Yeah. He's going to have to get creative on the rotations and how he plays the big guys and putting freshmen in there in spots that he probably wasn't preparing for. It's the one spot on the roster where you feel limited at the 4. So that would be interesting.
100%.
WVU's
could for sure happen.
Yeah. Who will be WVU's leading scorer? If you had to guess on July 28th.
Wow.
It's not a simple. It's
not a simple question. I will say this. I mean, I would maybe say Bizjack. I don't think it's going to be Miles Sadler, who people.
I don't think so either. My guess would be Bizjack too. Yeah.
If I had to guess, I would go Bizjack. It almost feels the only pause there is it almost feels, and he's a different and better player in my eyes, but it almost feels like that's a little bit of kind of the Eagle staff mentality of a year ago. So. That didn't end up coming to pass. So I wonder if Ross Hodge is going to think, well, if I think it's the same thought process of a year ago and that didn't work, will I go another direction? I also can certainly see him, unlike a year ago, because it took a while for him to give trust to the team. He talked about this to allow them to even control the huddles. I mean, it's a new team. He's going to have to do that as well. But I do wonder that if it's not going well going through one player early in the season, like it was supposed to be Huff and Eagle staff wasn't there for a few games, if he kind of changes who he reroutes the offense to. Maybe a criticism of last year is he kept trying to do the same thing, and Eagle staff was gun shy, wouldn't shoot the ball, and it was still kind of running through him for spurts. You got to change quicker. So I would probably lean Bizjack. Miles Sadler, I could see the assist being there. I could see depending on whether you get these waivers, him getting minutes. I think he's going to play right away. I know that based on, the money he's getting and the deal and recruiting him, he wants to play. So this isn't like they're going to kind of quasi redshirt him or not play him. He's going to get time and be an integral part of this team if they win. But I don't think he's going to be, this 20. I think people think he's just going to be the 5-star recruit, and they've seen what he's done at the high school level where he's had these big scoring games in addition to the assists. I don't know if we're always going to get that guy in the Big 12. It's just a different animal. And I think the expectations of him throwing up, 20-6 is nuts as a freshman that some fans seemingly have the way they're talking. I would not imagine. I actually would think that if he is the leading scorer, then they're not a tournament team. And the season probably didn't go well. If somehow that ends up being the case.
Oh, like a Jonathan Hargett season. Yeah,
like if
to
it
go
ends
all
up
the way
being
back.
where like they kind of just let the kid loose because the year's not going well,
right?
And they know that they're paying him and he wants to play and they want to not risk losing him. That could be a thought process, because why are you holding anybody too when it's kind of year-to-year business these days? But that doesn't seem like that's the recipe for success in Hodges' mind of letting it through Sadler scoring wise. I could see maybe other ways for
how Sadler plays affects the ceiling the most for this year, for sure.
And it's hard to say.
It doesn't have to be scoring. Right.
No, and it's really hard. I can't imagine anybody outside of on the coaching staff could give you a definitive answer of how that's going to go in late July. But that is a gigantic deal and a big wild card. And maybe why Rothstein thinks they're a sleeper team. Maybe he thinks a lot of Sadler. Like that could be a wild card people are thinking of. They're not saying.
The third best point guard in the previous class was Kingston Flemings. So in the comparison with Miles Sandler being the third. All right. Yes or no? Will WVU finish the season in the top half of the Big 12 regular season standings?
Yes.
Okay.
I think they're going to be good.
Will Ross Hodge make his first NCAA tournament as a head coach in 2027?
I do think part of it is because of the tournament expanding. And I guess if you're top half of the Big 12, you're likely getting there. So yes, I think he has to. I think he will. I don't see a deep run, but I do think the appearance occurs and that drought ends.
All right. And last question. Appreciate the time, Mike. Will WVU football finish in the top half of the Big 12 standings in 2026?
Wow. I mean, obviously the projections are the bottom of the 14th or whatever. Top half, I don't know. I could see kind of pushing it to being right around the middle. I think they should be a competitive team. I think the schedule's easier, certainly in the out-of-conference schedule. That Virginia game is going to be a big barometer of how really good they are before you get into the Big 12 schedule. You have some programs, Iowa State, Oklahoma State early, despite Oklahoma State having a great roster, that are in year one with coaches. So maybe you could take advantage of that. It's an early, I could see them being 5-1 early in the season, but then it gets hard down the stretch. There are some guaranteed losses in there. I'll say it. I do think they're going to make a bowl game. I'll give you. And I think like there's pressure on Hodge to get in the tournament, I think there's fair pressure on Rich Rod to at least make a bowl game. And if that seventh win happens in the bowl game by winning the bowl game, so be it. But I do think getting in a bowl game and at least getting that as an accomplishment in this second tenure is important. I think that is important. 5 wins and 6 wins may seem like the same year. It is not. And a lot of programs won't care about bowl games. I think for this particular program, off of recent memory, not even having been ranked since before Neil Brown and all of that, getting in a bowl game would kind of give you a little bit of the Mayo Bowl feel. I mean, they won 9 games that year, but that was just getting in some type of bowl game, and having a successful winning season was a rarity in the Neil Brown era. People were really excited. That'll be like the turnout of this bowl game under Rich Rod. I think the fans will really show up and be really all about it. Not getting in a bowl game, I'll say this too, failing to get in a bowl game with, I think, objectively a better roster, a more talented roster, a roster with more experience coming in, a much bigger roster lineman-wise, both in the D-line and O-line, a group that's been fixed on some of the problems that they had. I think Cam Cook's better than Jaheim White. Regardless of who's the QB, I think Michael Hawkins provides you a higher ceiling personally, but I think this team has to make a bowl game, will make a bowl game. But if not, when you're investing the money there they invested in comparison, and you're outbidding Pitt for Matt Sieg and top recruits, you're flipping Kevin Brown, all of that, Josh, if they don't, I mean, Renbaker's loyal, and McAfee is in favor, obviously, and it's part of the money that's been invested to have Rich Rod there. I'm not saying they would fire him. I think going into year 3, if they miss a bowl game, he'd be on the hot seat. I don't think he'd finish the contract if he never has a winning season. He has to do something in this tenure that's not 20 years ago to stay on, or I think he'd even have to step down. I think that conversation would happen, is you need to step down if they win 4 games again, like some nationally are saying.
Yes. And it's because of that 20-year history that puts him directly on the hot seat if it doesn't go right in year 2. It would happen to anybody, especially that guy. Sure. Fascinating. We'll be there. Football soon. Basketball will follow. Mike, Asti, thank you for joining me on Unreasonable Doubt, a podcast about West Virginia University basketball.
I appreciate it, man. Hopefully the conversation wasn't too unreasonable for the listeners.
Big thanks to Mike for joining me on the podcast. Do not blame Mike for jinxing the Javan Buchanan waiver. Totally not on him to say that he did not think he's going to get a waiver. Again, not on Mike. But you can find him on X at Mike Asti11 at MikeAsti11. That's it for this episode of Unreasonable Doubt. Listen on all the platforms, or just pick one: Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Overcast Podcasts, Pocket Cast Podcasts, YouTube. Until next time, I'm Josh Witt. WVU for the 2026-2027 season. They have 0 wins and they have 0 losses.